For me, customer is everything. Customer is always right, even when they're wrong. The cost of telling a customer no is so much higher than telling the customer yes every time.
Welcome to Behind the Screens, Conversations with Background Screening Pros. I'm Les Rosen, your host, and I'm excited to have you here. On this podcast, we chat with the people who know the background screening world inside and out. Executives, industry experts, legal pros, and more. We dive into their personal stories and insights to give you a real look at what's happening behind the scenes. Whether you work in the screening industry or are just curious, Behind the Screens bring you the real, unfiltered conversations from the people who make it all happen. Stick around for stories you won't hear anywhere else. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Behind the Screens, Conversations with Background Screening Pros. And one of the fun things about this program is I get to talk to people that I know because I see them all the time at PBSA shows, or we may have business communications, but I never really had the chance to sit down and have a cup of coffee and really get to know them much better. And today I'm delighted to have someone that I've known for years. He's been to at least 30 PBSA shows. He's been a substantial supporter of PBSA, and we'll find out more about his service, PBSA, and what he's done. And he comes to background screening from a unique perspective as a co-founder of a global HR payroll firm that also does background screening. So that's really interesting as well. A big supporter of background screening and just an all-around great guy. Welcome to the program, Vivek Khanna. Vivek, good to see you.
Thank you, Les. It's really a pleasure to be here on your show. I've looked at and seen all my mentors and seniors who have been part of the show, and I was looking through and I said, I am so honored to follow in their footsteps to be on this show. So thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for being here too as well. I really appreciate your time. So let's start with our first question. Where are you today? Where are you talking to us from?
I'm based in the city of Los Gatos, a small town just outside San Jose, California.
That's a great place to be. Tell us what you're currently doing, your current position, what you do, what you find interesting about it.
Absolutely, yes. So I co-founded a company called Neeyamo. Neeyamo is a global HR services company. And relevant to the audience over here, we are among the few larger players that provide background screening outside the US, and we cover all the 200 countries. I've been at it for more than 15 years. And over the last 15 years, we've built this amazing network, and we've built this amazing service offering. And what really makes us different from anybody else, for any of my peers and competitors that are also in this industry, and some great ones, we are all good friends, is that Neeyamo services over 80% of the work in-house. So today, because of Neeyamo's other business interests, product is primarily global payroll, I actually have colleagues locally in over 80 countries. No one in our industry has that. Not even the largest of the companies have local presence in 80 countries. We do. And because of that, we can leverage that network to be able to deliver compliant background checks for all the CRAs in the industry. So all the CRAs come to us when they need to get a background check done anywhere fast and compliantly. And of course, must cost efficient. Because what the other thing that differentiates Neeyamo from everybody else is our ownership of our network of global delivery operations. We have operations in Philippines, we have operations in India, we have operations in Egypt, we have operations in Poland, I have operations in Mexico. So I follow the sun to be able to deliver these services for my clients.
So the great thing is anytime you travel, you have an office.
Oh, absolutely. All the time. Last 10 years, I have been at an average. I don't know this unless when I get the annual statement either from Hilton or Holiday Inn or from Delta. I have normally been on the road for over 120 days a year.
Wow.
Those are just milestones, but the fact is we have built and we deliver today one of the best networks when it comes to international screening burnout.
That's a great story. So, what was your career path? How did you get involved in this crazy industry and from where you started to where you are now?
I've had a very eclectic career path, actually. Yes. So by education, I'm an accountant. I'm a qualified chartered accountant, which is the equivalent of a CPA in India. I qualified accountant, but never practiced, ran my family's business for the first 10 years of my career, which was in industrial goods, manufacturing, construction, and all that. Then the computer bug caught me, and this is right at the cusp of when the internet was to happen. So back in 90 and 99 in a place like India where people didn't even know what internet was about, I was into internet. And then landed in the US just when the dot-com was bursting. And I've been part of the outsourcing industry. So initially in IT, then started with business process, and then in that process got into HR. And because part of HR, the company I was part of before we co-founded Neeyamo was a company called Caliber Point. And Caliber Point was actually lucky enough to get a contract from LexisNexis to do offshore-based services for LexisNexis. And that's what exposed us to this beast that we call as background screening. And then we came into the world of background screening when we co-founded Neeyamo and discovered that while US had a very mature process, rest of the world did not have a mature process. And I think we were in many ways responsible for bringing two things into the industry. One, converting this from an investigation into a business process, right? Everybody before us was doing an investigation outside the US. We turned it into a business process just like US. We brought in technology to make it even more efficient. And then we brought our infrastructure and our network and all our chops to make it most cost effective. A lot of the CRAs who were not making any money selling international checks, today, the international checks may account for only 10% of their revenue, but can account for 20, 30% of their profits. Because they make a lot of money when they sell an international check versus when they do a US check.
And you also have, I saw online that one of your, I guess, a division or whatever you would call it is ScreenXchange.
Correct. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that, Les. I really appreciate it. So, all these years of delivering international screening services, we realized that while we have amazing tool providers in the US, ASIO, TazWorks, ClearStar, many others who have built great tools for the US, when it comes to either a CRA, and I'm calling them CRA for lack of the better, but basically a background screening company that is based outside the US, whether it's in UK or Africa or Japan or Singapore or Indonesia. We have, as if you can look at the PBSA's international chapter, we have quite a few now. When I started back 15 years ago, we were maybe 10 of us outside the US, and today it's like 150, maybe 200 of us. We've gone from being 2% of the population to now nearly 30% of the population. It's a huge growth that has happened. They don't have good scalable technology. So we decided to use our understanding in our domain knowledge to launch this product so that our peers and other companies could leverage what we had built and bring into it also a spin of AI. So we have something called Agent SAM, which is basically artificial intelligent agent to do the various processes and verification, etc., which is embedded into this technology. We launched it months ago, and then recently I was in London, and we had booth was basically all about ScreenXchange.
And by when you say London, you were at the PBSA Europe Africa Conference 2026 just held in London at the Barbican, right?
Correct, exactly. Wonderful conference, excellent, very well organized. Kudos to the organizing team and all the people over there, and I think we have got to learn from those guys to make sure our conferences can now match up.
That's fantastic. So along the way, who were some of the mentors or early influences in your career, or some of the people that made an impact on you? You like to give them a shout out?
Oh, absolutely. You may be one of the first people to actually ask me this question. I recently turned 60. I have now a bit of a decade behind me, and I started thinking about it. That who are the people who really actually made an impact? Besides, of course, all the women, my mother and all of that. that I can't deny.
Right.
But if I truly look at it, I thought about it, and I think my grandfather,
Oh.
who was a very unique personality himself, he was a gentleman who was born, which is in an area in Multan, which is now Pakistan. And he went to school in England, did double engineering, came back, and then migrated to India when the partition happened, and then started working for a company. And then, surprisingly, he started a manufacturing unit at the age of 70 when he retired. And he ran that for till the age of 77. He taught me a lot of stuff. So just the thought process, my father, my uncles, I've been so damn lucky, Les, that I've had some amazing people to guide me, whether it's people in my family because I was part of the family business, or when I entered the corporate world. One of my first bosses was a gentleman called Dinesh Natarajan. And if you look him up on LinkedIn, you will see he's written 20 books and he's a chairman and on board on many things. He taught me so much. And then I had a boss called Manab then, and now Ashok, who's my current chair. All of these people have had amazing influence in their own way, right? They all taught me from anything from what makes sales, how do you build customer service, how do you have a client centricity, how do you look at even making money. So each one in very different ways added to my skills and my experience. It's crafted me to who I am today.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that answer too is that it's not only that you had an amazing galaxy of people around you, but you were open to all continual learning and
Correct.
listening and absorbing and figuring out your path after hearing all this advice. So that's the other part of the equation. You can have all the mentors in the world, but you also need to have your mindset, which is to be open to continual learning and have that curiosity. So that's great.
Absolutely. I think I developed that sense of being open very early in my career, to be open to criticism, open to hearing another person's perspective. You know, a lot of people get upset by criticism. I don't. I look at criticism always, whether negative or positive, very positively, because I have seen that I have been wrong so many times that I find it easier for other people to point it out than for me to discover much later.
What that brings to mind, if you don't make some mistakes, you're not doing it right, then you're not doing anything. But I look back at my career, there's some mistakes I like so much, I made them 2 or 3 times. But all right.
Correct. Correct. So if somebody points it out to you, it's great. I'm very appreciative of it. I don't mind.
So in this career path and building what you have built, we all learn lessons along the way. Life sends us lessons if we want it or not. But is there something that comes to your mind that has stuck with you that you may want to, a particular piece of advice that has struck a chord with you that you might want to share with others?
So all throughout my career and to date, I have one core value, Les. It's been with me even when I was, part of my family business in a place like India and right throughout, is what people now today term as customer centricity. For me, customer is everything. Customer is always right, even when they're wrong. They're right. Okay? And one of the things that I have learned after coming to the US is that is the reason for the success of this country. It's only in the US when even internally people tell each other, you are my customer. HR tells employees are my customer. And therefore you are right. Right?
Right.
You sell at every process, right? So that customer sensitivity, the fact that you can buy something, walk back to the store, and the store will take it back, no questions asked. Most places in the world, they won't even dream of it. But what most places in the world don't understand is that because of that, so many much more people buy so many more things that they never return.
Right.
So the revenue is so much more higher. The cost of telling a customer no is so much higher than telling the customer yes every time. It is counterintuitive. This was something very strange when I heard one day, safely, right? And In Safeway earlier, when you used to push your card in, and I'm talking about before the tap came in, you put your card in, you swipe your card, they would make you sign. And then one day they stopped signing. So I asked the cashier, I said, I don't need to sign. He said, no. The company decided anything less than $20 is not worth signing. And I said, why? He said, they realized that the time I spent to get you to sign, compounded across all the cashiers in Safeway, is more expensive than all the chargebacks they've ever had.
I love that quote that the cost of saying no is so much higher than the cost of saying yes.
Cost of saying yes.
Yep.
You change the customer's dynamics, right? I find people obsessing over contracts. And I tell them, you're wasting your time. Get it done, get it going. Because if the customer wants to get out, they will get out.
Absolutely.
Right? So you're obsessing over a contract, unless there is something which is egregious, don't waste your time. The easier you make it for your customer to do business with you, that's been one of our core values. And I can tell you, every CRA will tell you that when they work with Neeyamo, it's so easy to do business. We make it extremely easy. We focus on making sure if the customer comes to me with a problem, I am on top of it. I make the life miserable for every team member, saying why. And once you drive that culture of customer centricity, I think it changes everything. I would attribute the entire success today to that one core line.
Now, that's fantastic. I mean, that brings to mind a store like Nordstrom's, for example, which is famous. You can bring back anything for any reason. And so people think they're losing money. And in fact, they make a ton of money because they buy so much more knowing they can bring back something. So that's a great insight.
Yeah, because you make it so easy, you make it so risk-free. That's what the customer wants, right?
That's true. I mean, in the background screening industry, we talk about risk mitigation, but in reality, what the customer wants is to be risk-free in their dealings with their partners as well. That's such a tremendous core value. It's a great lesson to learn. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. In my mind, I always tell people, background screening is nothing but insurance. We are insurance companies.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right? And the best insurance companies are the ones that collect premium and make it easiest to settle the claim.
So, talking about the background screening industry, given the fact that you've listening to your early history as a chartered accountant and the number of potential business enterprise you could have gotten into, you really have put a lot of emphasis in the background screening, not exclusively because you're also with Neeyamo, there's global HR, global payroll, but you come to every PBSA show, you're so involved, we'll get to that in a minute. What do you enjoy most about the screening industry, and what keeps you coming back to the PBSA conferences, the mid-year and the annual, year after year after year?
I'll try and address this question. So why do I come back to PBSA? Because they're my family. They're my friends. When people ask me, I said, why do I go to PBSA? I said, that's the only place where I keep getting hugs and shakes and fans every hour, right, of the day. That's all. I keep going back there to meet my friends. These are people that I have known and they treat me so wonderfully and so friends. And PBSA is a very, very unique organization. I don't think there is any other trade organization like PBSA where all these companies that could be fervent competitors in the market, when they come to meet at the PBSA, they're the best of friends. They will help each other out. They will give each other tips and say, you should do this and you should do that and you should do this. And they'll go back and compete outside in the market. They'll never keep anything back. And I think it's all because of you seniors. You all set that culture up in the organization to begin with, right? You were all the competitors who came together and formed it, all the chairs. Everybody has that bond harmony around, and there's so much of enthusiasm when people come to the conference. So that's the reason I go. But screening industry is really unique. I think it's one of those aspects that we have got it right in the United States, and I think we need to spread it more to the world. It's a unique offering where we are enabling companies to mitigate their risks. Companies in the US have adopted it. Other places in the world, if you look at financial services, IT consulting, companies that are working with the US have been better at adopting it, but others could adopt it and get greater results from it. I think evangelizing this service offering outside would really valuable to us as an industry. And I think the first step that we've taken to move our name from NAPBS to PBSA is a great first step. All our chapters are an amazing step to take this. But this is an industry that helps companies, in my mind. In the US, of course, it's a liability transference. But outside the US, it's more about hiring people of high integrity. I was once with a very senior gentleman in the drug screening industry. And I asked him, I said, why do people fear drug screens? He says, the only reason a person fears the drug screen is only two. Either he's stupid or he doesn't care. It's because all he needs to do is make sure that he drinks 2 gallons of water and he will dilute himself that he won't fail. He cares. Or he's just stupid, right? He says in either case, if a person fails drug screen, you shouldn't hire it. Not because he's failed a drug screen, but because it shows a personality trait. So if people rely on their resumes, they show you a personality trait, which I think we as screeners show to the employer more than the risk part of it, whether the person will work in that company or didn't work in it. It shows their integrity, their ability to tell the truth in the simplest as well as the most compelling situation.
Very true. When you talked about the drug testing, I've always said, and this is a joke, if someone is smart enough to pass a drug test and they're on drugs, maybe that's who you want to hire. That shows a lot of initiative and ingenuity. And obviously, it's not serious, but it's not right. But I couldn't agree more on that. So let me just skip one question. We'll go back to it in a second. Let's skip down to the question about, since we got onto PBSA, what's been the PBSA influence in your career and what's been your participation?
So I think I've had great people, mentor me in PBSA, right? And I kind of stumbled into this industry. I didn't decide into it. We stumbled in it because we were doing work for LexisNexis, as I said in the earlier. Then we started doing some work. We discovered in India that it was a broken process. So we started doing India. Then from India, we started doing other countries. And people kind of gave us opportunity and one by one kind of guided us. And that helped us look at this industry and say, hey, we can make a mark. The existing people are servicing, but there is a better way to do it. The encouragement that we got from all our CRA clients, right, appreciated that we wanted to do it differently. We wanted to make sure that they got the highest level of services. We wanted to do it more cost efficiently so that they could now start making money. A lot of my CRA clients, before they started working with Neeyamo, they used to basically treat international screening as a pass-through cost and not make any money on it at all. It was only after they started using us that they realized, oh, I can charge my customer $75 and I pay only 15. So it's a great margin.
And you've been involved in a PBS role. At one point, you were chair of the Global
Correct.
Advisory Committee. Well, tell us about that.
Correct. So yes, this is a time when the US was primary and that was the NAPBS, and then we used to have the Global Advisory Council. I became the chair and on the APAC side, because that's where Neeyamo was hosted. And from APAC, then I got co-opted to be the chair in the Global Advisory Council. And I think one of the things that I started, which took nearly 5 years, and I truly appreciate people like Michelle LeBon and others who took what I started, was the international accreditation standards. So I started when I was the chair, and then it took the whole association 4 or 5 years to formalize it, and now it's available. And we have like maybe 20 companies who are accredited internationally. Neeyamo being one of the first ones. But true, I think that has been one thing that I've given back, is starting that. I didn't create it, I started the process. 5 years later, a more structured and a better process was created by Michelle LeBron and the rest of the chairs who followed after.
And before we go on to questions outside of screening, let's go back to one question I like to ask everybody. In looking back at your career journey or life journey, is there a particular accomplishment or proud moment you wish to share? And this is a tough question for some people because no one likes to brag, so I'm not asking for that, but I'm just saying, is there something that you'd like to share that kind of brings a smile to your face and you can say, yeah, that was a good one?
So, this was another question that really got me thinking. What would I look at myself? And I think there are two parts, right? There is one which takes me back to much before I came into the world of outsourcing. When I was part of my family business, and this was under from the guidance of my grandfather, I actually designed a pump, a vertical pump, one of the first of its kind to handle petroleum oils in India. I designed it, we manufactured it, and we sold it to the oil companies in India.
Oh.
There was an accountant who was designing pumps. So I think that, something that I look back to, I said, oh my God, a lot of those engineers would have never thought about it. But it was something that I learned on the job, and I was happy to make that.
That's
and
fantastic. Great.
Yeah. And the second part, I think, which, if I look at from a screening industry, and less you know about this, is when we first started 15 years ago, there was a very strong movement, which we used to call as concerned CRAs, right? If you remember that movement where people were not very, from a risk perspective, they weren't ready to use a company that was international in their screening process. They had concerns, right? And genuine in that. I think our focus on being able to deliver high quality services and keep it compliant, bring in all the security standards into our company, make sure that we were ISO 9001, and bring all of that. I think creating that screening services, I think is like something that I feel extremely proud of. That I was able to convince the industry 15 years ago, my CRA clients, to give us a chance, deliver efficiently, and make it important. And then now we have so many more, right? So you have iCover, and you can see Owens and NetForce, so many others, who are out there who have been able to leverage that same model and deliver a better service offering to everybody. Mm-hmm. I can make some credit of being helping to start that movement.
Happy to be part of getting that ball rolling. Right.
Correct.
Oh, excellent. I've spent a fair amount of time on background screening, but believe it or not, there is a world and a life beyond background screening. So let's talk about that. Tell us what you do when you're not involved with all the business activities. Are there any hobbies or interests outside of work that you like to share, or things you do for fun?
So, I have always been a technology geek, okay? But not a technology geek in terms, I don't know how to program. I have no clue what programming is about. To the extent I can't even create a pivot table on an Excel sheet.
Join the club.
I love technology, and I try and keep up to date from every shape and form. So I've discovered something amazing, Les. And this is something which has been on with me for the last 2 or 3 months. I write poetry. I write poems in Hindi, which are called ghazals.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a particular poetic form which is in our local language, Urdu or Hindi.
Oh, okay.
And I have discovered, because of AI, and now there is a program called Suno, that I can convert everything that I have written into songs with full music and people singing. And you cannot make out that this was not professionally done.
Wow.
And in the last 2 months, I have released 3 albums on Apple Music.
Right. Fantastic.
So it's just me and AI.
So you're able to use AI, the creator, and take an area of interest and turn it into an album and add music and create something out of thin air that wasn't there before.
Exactly. That wasn't there. And I have been able to convert. I have made country music songs. I have now taken my songs and translated them into Spanish, into Portuguese, into Farsi, into Arabic. And these songs are appreciated by people world over.
Oh, that's fantastic. And if somebody wants to follow that up, how would they find that?
It's called Bedar, Bedaar, Bedar Lakhnavi. It is Lakhnawai. Or they can just ping me on LinkedIn or whatever, and I'll be more than happy to send them both Apple Music or Spotify or anywhere. It's on 250 different stuff. That's the other part. Releasing a record today is as easy as making it. You do it right. There are all sorts of tools available that help you create everything from the cover art to doing it and publishing it and getting the ISBN. It's so easy.
What a world. I mean, you and I both go back to the day when the height of technology was a pager and a fax machine. So, boy, things have changed.
Oh, absolutely. So that's what really makes me so enthusiastic of the coming days. When people talk about AI and its impact, and I look at this and I think to myself, oh my God, for the younger people, if somebody has a creative aspect, there's so much more people could do, right? If you're a creative person, you can sit, create this, create small ad clips, and suddenly our radios will have so much better advertisement from a local grocery store because somebody will do a much better job.
Well, that's fantastic. At our age, we have now become music and content creators. It's not just for Gen Z anymore. And in that vein, and you may have already have covered it, do you care to reveal a fun fact about yourself in addition to what you've already talked about that people would not know or suspect about you, kind of a hidden something or other? Keeping in mind, fair disclosure, that once you mention it, if people listen to this program and they see you at the next PBSA conference, they will undoubtedly harass you about it.
I think beyond the fact that, the fact that I said I've not turned into a content creator, I think the only other thing, it isn't really hidden, but most people know that I love good food. And because I have the pleasure of traveling all over the world, one of the things that a lot of people do is follow my Instagram because then they get to see all the great places that I get to go and see and eat.
So are you one of those folks that, I haven't seen it myself, but do you take your camera and then when your meal comes, you take a picture of it and then post it on Instagram and describe where you are and what you're eating?
On my Instagram, the only thing that you will see is food pictures.
All right. So I got to know, what is the best meal you can remember and what is the strangest meal that you can remember?
Okay, the strangest meal that I have had was an ostrich burger in Los Angeles. I had a burger made out of ostrich meat.
Wow. An ostrich. Okay. Oh, fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, there's actually a place, I had this in LA, but there is actually a place in San Diego. It's a place that only makes burgers which out of different types of game meats. So you will get ostrich, you'll get crocodile, and then of course you'll get bison and pork and of course beef. Most kind of animals that you would think about.
This is fascinating. So there's a restaurant in San Diego, I've not heard of this, where they make burgers out of exotic food. Have you been there yet?
Yeah, I'm going to San Diego. It came up on my Instagram and I made a point to go there. So about me is that because of my religious belief, I don't eat beef, which means
Right.
I will not eat a cow, a milch cow.
Right.
Outside that, everything that walks or flies, I will eat. I've had bison and I've had ostrich and crocodiles and snakes and everything.
Wow. Well, I've heard of the crocodile rock with Elton John, but I haven't heard of the crocodile burger. So that one would be a new one for me.
So yeah, and you eat grasshoppers. The Mexicans make them amazing. It's bar food.
Well, I tell you what, if we ever go out for dinner and they serve grasshopper, you can have mine.
Yeah, but I think amongst the meals, I've had some great meals world over. I've had some excellent meals in Antwerp. Of course, London is amazing, especially when it comes to Indian food. London has some outstanding restaurants, but equally good is San Francisco. We have some great Indian restaurants here.
Right. I mean, I remember going to England 30 years ago when the height of culinary, good taste was the mixed grill, which was various meats sitting in an inch of oil. So things have changed.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think one of the advantages of globalization has been our ability to get amazingly good food. Being exposed to all types of cuisine world over. And surprisingly enough, it's something that binds us as human beings much more
Right. Yeah.
than it divides us.
That's true. It's hard to be mad at someone if you're sharing a meal. Yeah, I know for an Indian restaurant, I think Nick Fishman once took me to Amber on Market Street in India. I think
Yes, that's a good one.
and there was also an Amber, I think, in Santana Row down closer to you.
Yeah.
In San Jose. Yeah, exactly.
But that one closed down, but now there's another one in this place called Fitur.
Okay.
Yeah. When it comes to San Francisco Bay Area, when it comes to Indian food, you can take a culinary journey in two areas, both Indian and Chinese cuisine. you can actually get cuisines from 14 different regions of China in the Bay Area. Each so distinct that you will not think that they are as close to
Wow.
the Chinese food that you have.
Oh, that's incredible. I remember going to China back in the early 80s, and every dish had at least one UFO, unidentified food object. You had no idea what it was, right? So you're a content producer of, as you described, with music and everything else, and you're also, I don't know if this is an insult, if you call someone a foodie.
Yes. Well, I'm a foodie.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're coming down towards the end here. I don't want to use your valuable time, but I do want to ask you just a couple more questions before we conclude. Given all the experiences that you've had in growing companies and everything you described, what would be your advice to a newcomer to the industry? Not necessarily someone starting a background firm, it could be, or someone who is just entering the industry. Maybe they're an entry-level verifier or a criminal records person or just starting to market, whatever it is. What would be your advice as for the best way to succeed and get ahead and be successful in the background screening industry?
Thank you, Les. Les, in my mind, one, I would go back to what I consider as my core value. Right? Understand your customer. We exist because there is someone who needs our service, and we are here to deliver the service to them. That is extremely important. Who is your customer? Because even within our vast screening industry, every screening company has their own different, distinct type of customer. You are a screening industry that services construction company. You're a screening company that services technical company. You're a screening industry that services blue collar workers. You're the screening industry that services drainage. Who is your customer? Why are they doing the screen? Right? Understanding and being empathetic to that fact, I think that's extremely important. If you do that and make that your North Star, you will definitely be successful, because then you're focused at delivering a service that everyone will want to buy, whichever way you do that, right? And the second part is, this is the most exciting time ever to be in this industry, or for that matter, any industry, because technology is going to change everything. And adopt it, learn it. Make sure that you understand how the technology can help you, how it can strengthen you, how it can make your life easier and better, and help you fulfill your North Star. I saw an amazing diagram recently, and it kind of resonated with me. If you look at traditional organizations, right, it had a triangular hierarchical structure. You had lots of people at the bottom, you had a middle layer who would manage, and then you had the top management layer. Now, what the new technology is going to do is going to turn this triangle into a diamond. You're going to have very few people at the bottom. It's going to be basically agents and software programs. It's a new way to call anything. It's software programs that will help you do your work. So adopt those programs. Don't fight. Adopt them. Change them. Make sure that you can do more. Because if you can do more, you will become invaluable to the company versus somebody who doesn't adopt. What's most important is that middle layer. You will automatically rise to the middle layer. That's where you will make the judgment calls. You will make sure that the exceptions are taken care of. You're the one who will be empathetic to your customer, making sure the customer gets the right services. If they have a question, they have a problem, they have an issue, you will be handling all that. And those are the skills that the younger people need to understand, learn, and these are innate to them. It's nothing new, right? They know how to talk to their friends, they know how to talk to other people. They are natural in technology, whether it's chat or text or email, whatever. They know how to do that. They just need the right North Star. So if they do that, adopt the technology and get their North Star right, they're going to be great.
Yeah, and I love your concept of the North Star. And to add to it or augment it, there's an old book I recommend it. I know you don't know it was in Premor, called the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And habit number 5 is listen and understand before you try to be heard. And it's an extension of that reflective listening. Not listen in order to figure out what you want to say, but listen to what the meaning behind the words. That's all part of that North Star you talked about. There may not be as much opportunity at the entry level, but how do we get the people, if there's not enough entry-level opportunities, and this is philosophical, I have no idea, How do they get the subject matter expertise to get the middle management? So that's something I guess we'll all be figuring out together.
Correct. I think it's a matter of perspective, right? We are so used to the thought process that the only way to middle management is a defined time period that somebody had to do rote work to become middle management, right? But when the process itself changes, then you automatically get to the next level. It's what you define as a middleman. So I'll give you an example and I'll go back to my days as an audit clerk. I'm a chartered accountant. And as a part of becoming a CPA, you have to spend 3 or 4 years working for other chartered accountants to, work as a part of their teams. Now, one of the first chartered accountants I worked for, and I'm going back now, 1987, 86, so we're talking 40 years ago. The gentleman didn't believe in the fact of a calculator. I'm talking about age of calculator, no PCs, because all the books were handwritten.
Right. That's the true definition of grunt work.
Right. And there was only one calculator in the office, and he made sure that the addition button, the plus button, would do work. So nobody in the office could use the calculator. He believed the only way to learn was to add by hand. Now, does this mean that I am doing better than all of my other people that have come after me who have never done that?
Right.
They've always used calculators and then PCs. They've done much far better.
Yep.
So we are in that same mindset of saying, because we've used PCs and that's the only way to learn, that the person who comes with an AI and doesn't have to has more learning of the domain knowledge. No, they will learn the domain the way it is supposed to be. And that's why I say they have to learn the domain is, what does my customer need?
Right.
What do I need to do? For them to know a rote mechanism is worthless. Because that's what the computer program will do. Will take care. And if something goes wrong, there will be a programmer to take care of it. That's not their job. Their job is to take care of the customer, make sure it's done correctly, the risks are understood. And that's what the companies will teach them.
Well, those are great observations. And when you're in the middle of a once every 2 century change or whatever, which we arguably are now, you don't recognize it. I mean, 3 or 4 years from now, they'll look back at this the same way we look at when railroads first came in the U.S. or the Industrial Revolution in the U.K. These events occur 100, 150, 200 years apart, and we're right in the middle of one right now. And it's hard to get your mind around that. But at any rate, I don't want to digress too far from our podcast mission here, but it's a great conversation to have next time I see you at PBSA. All right.
Absolutely.
Well, it's been a real pleasure having you. Before we sign off, that's our tradition on the podcast to give our guests the last word. So let me say if there's anything else you want to add or say, you get the last word before we sign off. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Les. Thank you for the opportunity. I think my only word is this is the most exciting time that has been in my life. I am so excited, in spite of the fact that, somebody would look at me and I would look at myself and say I'm turned 60, but I think there's so much more excitement in the world, so much more to do, so much more to accomplish. So I'm looking forward to the next few, 2 or 3 decades and achieve a lot more than what I've done today.
Well, life's an adventure, and we'll all be in that adventure together, so that's great. And Vivek, I appreciate your time here very much.
Thank you, Les. Thank you so much. Truly appreciate it.
And ladies and gentlemen, this has been another edition of Behind the Screens. Our guest today was Mr. Vivek Khanna, and with some great discussions and observations and a lot to think about, and I really appreciate his time. On behalf of Mr. Barry Nixon and the Pre-Employment Directory, who's our sponsor, we're thankful that you tuned in today. For further episodes, feel free to follow us online on LinkedIn or follow me on LinkedIn, and you'll get a notice of new episodes. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks with yet another episode of Behind the Screens. And Vivek, thank you once again. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Les. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, that was yet another wonderful conversation with a background screening pro. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an update. And hey, if you got a moment, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It really helps get the word out. For more info or to catch up on past episodes, or to make suggestions or to suggest possible future guests, head over to our website. Once again, this is your host, Les Rosen, and it's been a pleasure to bring you another episode. See you on the next episode. Thanks.